Captain Picard. Priority 1 message from Starfleet coming in on secured channel.
My Readier Room.
Hello, and welcome to the Readier Room, the only longest-running Star Trek The Next Generation rewatch podcast with the handsomest hosts this side of the orb. My name is Mitchell Mells, Chief Consultant of Services at Paramount, and with me is my life partner, Brandon Hobbs. Every week, we're bringing you behind-the-scenes stories and lore about TNG, BNG, and SNG. Brandon, how you doing today?
Doing great, especially because you mentioned just how handsome I am. Appreciate that, Mitch.
Well, you know, sometimes you deserve to hear it.
You're a handsome man yourself.
Ooh, thank you.
But I would certainly agree that. I mean, if you're gonna rank Star Trek podcast hosts, right?
By attractiveness.
By attractiveness.
Yeah. I mean, which we've done, I believe, if episode 16 of the show, right? We had that hour-long segment just running down our rankings.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah. You know, starting from the bottom, you of course have Will Wheaton.
Yeah.
And then, you know, it only gets better from there. But of course, we're right there at the pinnacle. You know.
I just want to. There's no bias in this. It's just.
Yeah. I mean, what it is a responsibility. It's almost a burden, you know. When you're the most attractive anything in any space, you know, there's kind of an expectation that you're going to excel, you know, far beyond anything, you know, anyone below you is doing. So, you know, it kind of keeps us on our toes.
You know, I heard this one time, the psychological effect that attractive people tend to be perceived as being really good at first-person shooters. It was the halo effect. That's what they called it.
Yeah, yes, that's right. And to think that it took them until 2001 to figure that out.
Well, people weren't really doing studies until about that time. So it checks out. But really, I think I can speak for everyone when I listen to somebody, I just hear their voice, and then I find out that they're, you know, ugly to moderately attractive, if that. I just feel robbed of my time, my previous time. And if we can do our part in exposing these podcast hosts for what they are, save the audience some time, and divert them to more, you know, attractive channels, I think we're doing a public good, the service.
Yeah, we're cleansing the space.
Yes.
For sure. But I understand we have quite a few items to get to.
Yes.
Before we start this episode. So why don't you start us off?
I have a burning question that has been on my mind for 1.5, 2 weeks now. And I don't know if you have a strong opinion on this, but I really need an answer. What is the difference between a puppet and a poppet?
A poppet?
Yeah, like P-O-P-P-E-T.
Who says this? British people?
I think so. I'm not exactly sure, but I've heard the term and seen the term poppet, where I would expect the term puppet to be used. And I think that maybe Nigel Thornberry would say poppet. Somebody, yeah. And I don't...
The guy from that...
the
cartoon.
That
show that my daughter watched?
Yeah, it was in the 90s.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, so, I mean, here's... And I know nothing, really, about poppets, but my idea here is that a poppet is much less mechanically complex, probably made of cloth, very, very kind of haphazardly put together. I would imagine it's more for magic type stuff, for witchcraft, you know?
Well, I know of your deep interest in witchcraft, and I want not everything's related to witchcraft, but I think you might be broken clocking here.
Yeah.
So I accept this. I accept this definition, and I'm not trying to make an argument. I really don't have any idea, but if this is the explanation, then I will accept it.
Well, this question strikes me as I mean, the real answer, I think, would be that Poppet is an archaic form of puppet. And so people who use Poppet are usually kind of role-playing.
As what?
As witches, as like old-timey, like Old English medieval type.
Why would people roleplay as witches?
I don't know, Mitch. It does a disservice to the real witches out there.
It does. It does. I mean, they're the ones who are fighting the Taliban right now, and they deserve respect, if anything.
Yeah, certainly. Yeah, and I guess now is as good a time as any to really give a shout out to all of the brave, mostly women, right?
Right.
Who are sending their psychic energy over to the Middle East to topple this terrorist regime. I think it's working.
Well, we just have a lot of respect for them. In the same way that Star Trek attracts men, witchcraft attracts women. And I think the two are quite analogous in a lot of ways.
You know what? You're right. That's actually an astute observation, Mitch.
So we can't help but respect them the exact same way we respect all of the Star Trek fans on the exact same level.
Of course, as they always say in Star Trek, technology that's advanced enough is indistinguishable from magic.
Right, and magic that is primitive enough is indistinguishable from technology.
Yeah. That's right. So that was it. That was your question, huh?
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't, politics, but it was something I wanted to know, and I thought who better to ask.
Yeah, okay. Well, since we got that down, I think we can move on to the next order of business, which is we would be remiss, of course, as entertainers if we didn't talk about this briefly, but we have lost a very important entertainer. One of the greatest men of his generation. Spot'em Gotham has been shot 5 times.
It was 5?
And I think it was 5 times, and he's now in critical condition in the hospital.
Wait, did we lose him, or is he in critical condition?
Well, that's the thing. The rumor is we've lost him, but there has there's been no formal announcement yet.
Well, I can understand. You kind of want to keep these things a little more in the family, a little more private. I heard from my son that Twitter was kind of having a day of mourning in a lot of Twitter spheres, and I can see why. Spot'em Gotham, it takes a lot for a musician to have the outreach where people like you and me, a young musician, I mean, where people like you and me are this affected by his passing. Yeah,
and it does really speak to just how much of an impact he had on the scene. I mean, when he linked up with Pooh Shiesty, probably the biggest musical event of the past decade.
It was the Live Aid of the 21st century.
So, yeah, just wanted to get that out. Get ready for some mourning, potentially.
I want to hold out hope.
Otherwise, send your prayers.
Yeah, I want to hold out hope until it's officially announced that he can make some semblance of a recovery. I'm not quite ready for a Gothamless world.
Yeah. I've been bracing myself, but we'll see. Next thing we have is, so the last episode that aired was recorded, of course, before Star Trek Day.
Right.
So, why don't we talk a little bit about Star Trek Day?
Yeah.
It was nice seeing all the fans. Really appreciate, the meet and greet we had. One thing I do want to note is that we do not take unsealed food.
No,
as contributions.
I want to go on record and say I appreciate the effort from everyone, from the fans. There's a lot of Trek insignia cupcakes,
beautiful stuff,
homemade brand bars. It was wonderful, but I think anybody on the con circuit will tell you there's just one too many incidents of spiked food, and that can be either an innocent prank or something far more sinister. But the incidents are just too high. So I encourage you to share them with fellow fans. There's always a ton at our meet and greets, and I think that's great. But please appreciate the position we're in, and in that case, your effort is a gift enough.
Yeah, and I think it would serve you better as a human being to share those kinds of things with, a young lady you might fancy, instead of us. So, all that food we had to take, and we had to give it to give that to Will, unfortunately. So I'm sorry to say that we did not try your cupcakes, John, or your brownies, Sarah.
The cake pops you made, they look delicious, but we couldn't do it. Now, unfortunately for Will, he's been on a bit of a diet recently, and it might have been his cheat day.
It's about time.
Those treats might have stretched out into 3 treat days.
Yes.
But he'll get over it.
Overall, really great turnout for Trek Day. Our panel on the dynamics of warp speed engines went over very well. It was a full house.
Oh yeah. My favorite part of it was your live Trek trivia challenge, which brought part of our podcast to the fans directly.
Right. Yeah. Totally. And unfortunately, no one was able to guess it. But then again, there are a few people who are, I think, as in tune with the science of warp drives as we are.
That's true. Now, I want to address some of the complaints people had about that. Our goal was to bring part of the podcast to you, and when we have a big trivia challenge, it's going to be like it is on the show. So if you thought that one question was too few for a big challenge, well, listen to the show. That's all we do every week.
Yeah, exactly. And, we already had, I think, kind of enough of a special sort of segment for the fans in our Q&A, which, we only do one of those, but we took 3 questions, actually.
Yeah,
at the panel, so
we exerted ourselves.
Yeah, I was exhausted.
Oh, you always are after conventions. I know how difficult it is for you to be on.
Yeah.
Even after we record the podcast, you always have to lay down for 4 hours.
Yeah, I have to go take a nap. I mean, I'm getting up there in age, we both are.
It's not easy to be this electric, I'll just say.
No. I mean, we're big personalities, and big personalities need a lot of time to rest,
Yes.
So, but yeah, I think that covers it for the items we had to deal with before the question of the week.
I really enjoy the items we have to deal with before the question of the week. It is quickly rising in my Readier Room segment power rankings.
Yeah, the items that we have to deal with before the question of the week, I think, might become an even longer segment in the near future.
I'm not going to spoil anything for the fans, but I haven't propped this idea to you yet. I'll propose it now. I'm kind of kicking around making items we have to deal with before the question of the week its own podcast by that title.
It's a good idea.
It's a great idea.
And, That way the fans will have 3 hours of content every week.
I'm trying to get it where I can monopolize the fans' time. We can monopolize the fans' time.
Monopolize the fans' time, get a couple extra podcasts out there, hit more varied audiences, make a little more money.
We're doing it for the love of the fans, love of the game.
Well, yeah.
The money's just nice.
Yeah.
It's just very nice.
Of course.
So, with the items we have to deal with for the question of the week officially dealt with before the question of the week, it's now time for the question of the week. And I think that a little birdie might have delivered this question of the week to you because he gave a little bit of advice privy to the question of the week. So, thank that birdie. So, this week's question of the week comes from Robert C. down in Wichita, who asks, good evening, Admirals. Well, little does he know that we record this not in the evening, but we'll let it slide. What advice do you have for us ensigns who are still without our first officers? Valentine's Day will be here before we know it, and I think we could all use someone to take virtual target practice with in a black void. That's a life question, I think. That's pretty deep. And despite the depth, it has a pretty easy answer, and that's just to drop anything and everything related to Star Trek out of your life. Just get out of it. Don't watch it. Don't talk about it. Don't think it. Don't say it. When asked, most women are pretty much actively repulsed by Star Trek. I remember this because we did intense focus testing for TNG, and the female demo, no matter the age, just terrible, low scoring. You go to conventions, you see who's there, 90+% men.
Yep.
And the obviously that leaves 10%, but I think I speak for all of us when I say no one should really have to settle for the type of woman that is in a Star Trek.
Certainly not. They're not lookers, that's for sure.
No, they're not thinkers either. So if you're writing into us, kind of asking this question, I think it's time. Star Trek has had its time in your life. It's time to put it away. You put away childish things like Star Trek and toys and Jacks in the Boxes.
Star Trek.
Your pregnant Troy T-shirt, get rid of that. Your phasers, quadcorders, anything. Get it away with. Go buy a lawnmower, fix your house up, and the women will come. The rest will follow.
Yeah. You gotta improve yourself first.
Exactly, and that starts with Star Trek. Don't even listen to the rest of this podcast. Leave it on, just mute it. But
yeah.
So
we do need the views, but
just better yourself, and life will follow. And as we said before, the female equivalent to the Star Trek fan are the witches. Don't settle for the witches. Don't settle for the what's either. Just yeah, it'll come. It'll come in time.
Very, very well said.
Thank you. Do you have any more advice for Bobbert here?
Well, I don't think I could have said it any better myself, Mitch.
That's never stopped you from trying.
Well, I think you did a great job.
Thank you. Well, I hope that helps, Robert C. And if you're like Rob and you have some question of the week that you want to ask us so we can answer it once a week, then send your question of the week to the readierroom@gmail.com or tweet at us at the Readier Room with your question of the week, and once a week we'll answer your question of the week right here on the show. So now, with that out of the way, it's time to get to this week's episode, which I think is going to be divisive amongst admirals.
Yes, it will be divisive among us.
It's a very suspicious episode for sure. But so we're talking about Contagion, which is season 2, episode 11.
Yeah.
Ooh, nailed it. Which I really liked. I thought
Okay.
I was thoroughly into it from beginning to end. In fact, I thought that tonally the episode was incredibly unique amongst the episodes of this season, and probably season 1 too, which gave it an identity. But the plot of the episode was engaging. The threat felt special and deserving of the attention that it got. There was one bit of weak writing that I might get into later that struck out to me that was a little contrived to create this situation. But overall, I was just thoroughly into it from beginning to end. This was the kind of science fiction story that I think Trek really excels at.
Yeah.
And you hated it.
I said off mic that I hated it, and I think that's a strong word. Look, I mean, you have to consider how this episode got its start to begin with. You know, the behind the scenes stuff going on with it. And of course, this episode was brought to us by Beth Woods. It says acknowledgement from Mitch.
Beth. Yes.
Yeah. You remember Beth, the gal who worked on the computers for us.
Right.
And so we had an informal competition amongst some of us, uncredited crew. I recall you also participated, Mitch.
Yeah, I mean, I tried to get out there and spread my influence around.
Well, and it's not necessarily that we needed to have done it, because we were very successful in our own positions already.
I mean, look at us.
Come on. But it's always good to have lateral skills, right? So basically we had a competition, and this was early in season 2's production, where we all tried to one up each other in creating the most just trite, sleep-inducing TNG episode possible. And boy, did Beth's treatment provide that in spades.
I know what we were trying.
Awful.
I know what we were trying to do. I know what she was trying to do, but
Well, okay. Look, I can get your point, because for the audience, what did end up happening was someone left her treatment lying around, and Maurice picked it up, and he loved it, and of course, we had to make it a full episode. So he linked Beth up with Steve Gerber.
like the baby.
Yeah. Of Gerber baby fame. And Beth got her writing credit at least. Congratulations, Beth.
Go Beth. So I maintain
nice.
This has been a point of contention for a long time, longer than anyone in the audience will know. Because this competition, of course, was to make the most boring episode of Trek. And because Beth got a writing credit, this was potentially her entry into that. But everybody was like, oh my god, Beth, you won. And then me and maybe one or two other people maintained that there's no way this is interesting. Like it's bullshit that she would win for this, because it's a genuinely interesting episode. And it's frustrating to lose on such a judgment call. Like you can make an objectively boring episode, and I don't think this is it.
Well, look, we can't discount Gerber's contributions, of course, to the script. But to me, look, I mean, from an audience perspective, I don't hate it. I do think it's the sort of material that Star Trek should be dealing with. I feel like it's been a while since we've had kind of a scientific mystery sort of episode,
Right, like an alien computer virus is what's more Trek than that?
Yeah. So it's a cool idea. I'm just not sure I appreciated the overall pacing. I didn't like the sets.
Really?
Yeah. I thought they were boring. I thought it was kind of uninspired.
I'll say that the sets certainly weren't a strength of the episode, but I don't think they
Yeah,
detracted from me.
And I thought a lot of the episode was just kind of silly, just for all sorts of reasons, which we'll get into.
Well, why don't we get into that now? I'm very
well, because it's worth spacing them out to sort of point them out as we go, I think.
Sure, and I know your anal retentive need to go through these episodes chronologically.
Well, I don't want to just sit here listing off all the things I thought were silly all at once. We're gonna end up with a lopsided episode, Mitch.
It's true. You got to bring balance to the Force. That's what we always say, right?
Yes. That is a famous Trek quote.
Yes.
But yeah, the question is, I guess, where do we start?
Well, I guess we can start at the beginning again, chronologically. I just had a blank because I don't really know where this episode begins.
It starts. They're going to rendezvous with the Yamimoto,
the sister ship.
Yes, there was actually an idea being kicked around before we'd finalized this episode that any appearance of the Yamamoto was actually going to be not the real Yamamoto, like the last time we saw it.
Right.
It was always just going to be like a figment of the crew's imagination. And in truth, there was no real Yamamoto.
That's a high concept idea.
Yeah, and eventually we would have an episode that kind of dealt with their realization that, wait a minute, we've never seen the real Yamamoto before.
Is this the mythical slow burn I've heard a lot about?
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what it is. And, we were ahead of our time in thinking that, but I think we were too ahead of our time because it obviously never materialized.
Yeah, so instead we just get a real ship. Now, they always describe ships as being sister ships, which I guess means there's never been a ship with a Y chromosome.
I suppose so, but it could also be trans.
Ah, that's true. Well, then why wouldn't you ever have one, going the other way, a sister ship that soon becomes to identify as a brother ship?
Well, I think the job of being a ship is inherently maternal. You're carrying all these people inside you.
That's true.
You're protecting them with your shields.
Right, somebody docks into you.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, it's everywhere. So I think you'd be hard pressed to find a male ship who is comfortable with himself.
I feel it.
And they're always calling ships by female pronouns. So of course they're going to get confused.
Yeah, I would rather them switch to the singular they, just in the name of inclusivity.
I think we'd all be more comfortable if everyone used they.
Right. It would be a lot easier to have casual conversation, too.
It definitely would.
They stole their bike.
Yep. Yeah, and see, that makes perfect sense. But yeah, so they're on their way to rendezvous with the Yamamoto.
There's a hidden wholesome moment here, by the way, and I know
right?
I know how much you and everyone at home enjoys wholesomeness. Oh my god, my phone just went off.
Oh, Mitch, you're supposed to be a professional.
I'm supposed to be a professional. So at the beginning of this episode, they're going to rendezvous with the ship, and Picard asks Wesley, what is our ETA, our estimated time of arrival? And Wesley Crusher says 4 minutes and 33 seconds, which is a very specific time to just throw into the script. Well, this is Beth's doing. Beth at the time had a newborn daughter, and her daughter was born on April 30th at 3 p.m. 4:33, which is just wonderful. That's a great little reference to Beth's daughter, little Cindy. Congratulations, Beth. Yeah, I know it's been decades since then, and I know you lost her to cancer a few years back, but congratulations.
Yeah, that's absolutely beautiful, and of course our condolences as well. So they do rendezvous with the Yamamoto. There's no trickery.
There is a mustache.
There's a mustache.
There's a mustache. The captain has a pretty wonderful mustache.
Oh. He must be from the Mirror universe.
That's true. Well, there was no goatee part of it. It was only a mustache.
Oh, okay. And they're having problems with their ship, and then suddenly they just explode, right?
How'd you feel about that?
Fine.
What about everybody's non-reaction to it?
I didn't think there was a noticeable non-reaction to it.
I felt that there was a very muted non-reaction, and they tried to explain this later in the episode, but not even just from a mourning perspective, but from a shock perspective. You would think that somebody would, jump or say, "Oh my God," when a ship just apropos of nothing explodes right in front of them.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I might be so used to this non-reaction from the crew now, because this has definitely happened before where there should have been a reaction and we got nothing.
Yeah, it jumped out to me as the viewer as strange. And much later on, there's a conversation where Wesley's like, "How do I deal with my grief over this ship?" And Picard gives him some fatherly advice, but that contextualizes his part of his reaction at the time. But again, it still just felt too unrealistically muted, even for seasoned veterans.
Yeah, and speaking of Wesley, he has not too much to do in this episode, but it's weird that he has as much to do as he does. I feel like
wonderful sentence.
Picard speaks to him about what's going on with the ship for what appears to be no reason.
Yeah, I like the idea of, all right, we're gonna have this more emotional human moment of Wesley dealing with deaths in the line of duty, because Picard makes a good point where he says, "Oh, we've been trained for this. You haven't had that training yet." And that's a pretty natural human element to add to the show. I didn't mind that. But
okay.
That's fine. I'm always sympathetic to the notion that, does Wesley really need to feature in this episode? Because him being so different from the rest of the crew, age, experience, outlook, shines, increases the attention on him whenever he's in a scene.
Yeah.
You can have Data just show up and read a few lines about technical exposition, without really caring about it. But Wesley, any line that he gives has more of a spin on it. That he's okay. Wesley's here, and what's he gonna do?
You should have had Data in this episode walk into Captain Picard's Readier Room and say something like, "Captain, I do not understand why we are not mourning the destruction of the Yamato." And then Troy could walk in and look at the camera and say, "Well, Data."
I the fact that with just based off of that, you could write that whole 3-minute scene in 2 minutes is wonderful to me.
So they're in the neutral zone, and this is the issue: is that the Yamato was looking for this ancient Iconian. Wow, I offended you. Apparently,
you did.
The Yamato's captain is looking for Iconia.
Yep, ancient civilization.
Yep, and he found it, but it's in the neutral zone, and they have this ridiculously advanced technology, and he's like, the Romulans can't get it. And then after the Yamato blows up, the Romulans show up, like immediately after, which makes them pretty suspicious.
They decloak. Or actually, maybe they just fly in. It doesn't matter. I don't know why I brought this up.
And now it falls on Picard and his crew to figure out what happened to the Yamato.
Okay.
In the neutral zone.
And when they find the ship, there's a brief moment where they can commune with it, and it's very apparent that the Yamato is having a lot of technical issues. Like lights are flickering on and off, the communications are constantly disrupted. The ship is basically marooned. They can't get it to their destination, and then it blows up. And this is where this is the one contrivance that I really identified in the episode, is after the ship blows up and they talk to the Romulan vessel who insists that they had nothing to do with it and everyone just needs to get out of the neutral zone. For very little reason, Picard insists on staying. And obviously the reason is that the plot needs to happen and, they can't just go home. But that really struck me as a weird thing to do at the time.
Well, okay. So my impression of it is that Picard obviously needs to find out what happened to the Yamato if the Romulans are involved.
Right, but when the Romulans say that they're not involved, and I think Troy gives a reading of their mood that would even indicate as much. Like, oh, they're really anxious, rather than something more aggressive, having that what they would feel having just destroyed a ship. My read of the situation, how as it was presented to the viewer, was that the Romulans were not involved, and the crew should also have that general feeling. Combine that with what has seemed to be a very, very precarious political situation, anything with the neutral zone. And I don't think that Picard would advocate for staying in there.
I don't think it's necessarily a contrivance. I mean, the Enterprise has kind of inserted itself into all kinds of things that were better left to literally anyone else to do, like dealing with pandemics and stuff like that.
I mean, that's true. It is in line with the show up to this point, but it's getting to the point where, okay, there's this neutral zone and this conflict with the Romulans, which is treated as the heaviest conflict the Federation has. And any misstep could lead to an intergalactic war of God knows what scale. And the Enterprise is just fine to traipse into the neutral zone whenever they want.
I do agree that it pulls some of the weight off of that controversy or that conflict.
Because part of what makes the Romulans as thrilling as they are, and believe me, I think they're quite thrilling, is the political tightrope that every interaction with them brings.
Yeah, sure.
So the more that's deflated, the worse everything gets. It just lowers the tide. So I thought that was a contrivance. I didn't think, like I said, I still really liked the episode, and this was the one element of it I thought was a little weak. But I also recognize that, you just need the story to happen, and these characters, for all intents and purposes, cannot leave the neutral zone if this plot is to occur. So maybe you need to hand wave this a little bit, but it's not a huge deal.
Yeah, I mean, I guess there could have been, a better way to get them to stay in the neutral zone, but it didn't bother me that much.
Well, here's a question: why did this need to take place in the neutral zone?
It didn't.
The presence of the Romulan ship throughout the plot doesn't really add so much tension when you think about it, because they're not the villain, and the ship, the Enterprise, is never really in danger from them.
Well, the Federation is in danger because if the Romulans get a hold of the warp technology that's on the planet,
sure,
that's the crux of the issue.
And I guess if the Romulans, because it's either Federation space, Romulan space, or the neutral zone, and if either of those parties were in the other's space, then it would be grounds for war.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's true too. So I guess it does need to be in the neutral zone.
Fair enough. Take it back. I'm a fool.
Yep. Yeah, you are.
Be sure to go buy your Mitch is a Fool t-shirts.
So, how does the Enterprise get infected?
They scan the log of the Yamato, which introduces the what befell the Yamato was a computer virus, and by scanning their logs, it now has access to the Enterprise's computer, and that causes increasingly serious malfunctions throughout the episode. I just want to say it's very convenient that the malfunctions start with the door and the replicator before ever getting to the engine.
Right, completely different systems.
Right. Whenever there's good thing it didn't go in the opposite order for no reason, right?
Well, you got to add a certain amount of tension, I guess, and that's how you do it. You started off with the simple stuff. I mean, that was an AIDS allegory, of course.
Right. It was the 80s after all.
Yeah. And Steve, God bless, may he rest in peace, etc., etc. He was already a pretty experienced writer by this point. That's, of course, why we had him on with Beth, who was very new. He had written Howard the Duck.
Yeah, that's a big name.
Howard the Duck. And, like any good writer, he wanted us to have a message with the show. And so he's the one who added that AIDS allegory. And a lot of people listening are probably too young to remember, of course. But AIDS in the 80s was a lot like the Enterprise's virus problem in this episode, where, you couldn't even get near anyone with HIV.
Right.
Or you kind of risk contracting it yourself. You didn't want to like touch them or even really breathe the same air.
I mean, I still don't want to do that, but certainly that was a lot more intense in the 80s.
Yeah. And I'm sure you can imagine how difficult it was to avoid these kinds of people in California, of all places. Yeah,
right. Especially in the clubs, the key parties.
So, if you have a problem with how masked up people are right now, poof. Let me tell you.
Be happy you weren't around at that time.
Mm-hmm. So, it's I guess the way the Enterprise breaks down, it's kind of like watching a body break down, where it's simple stuff at first, and then the further you go, and then you explode.
It's a pretty intense metaphor. All these ships are categorized as sister ships. They're the same gender, and they pass this disease onto each other, and then they're from the inside they start breaking down until they explode. Yes, it was very well thought out, and not every Trek episode works on as many levels as this one does.
Yeah, it was certainly no accident that this episode ended up the way it did thematically, and I think for all my, I guess, misgivings about the episode, that was one thing that really shone through to me. So,
silver lining.
Yeah. So yeah, the ship does start malfunctioning. Geordi gets in the elevator, and I'm still not sure what the elevator was supposed to be doing, but we had to get someone to throw LeVar up into the ceiling a few times to get those shots.
I remember everybody was volunteering to do it. Everybody who could.
Yeah.
They all wanted a piece of him.
Understandably.
It came to the point where we had to, everybody puts their name to the hat, because you only do so many takes. And LeVar could only handle so many takes. But I remember it was Michael who won one of them. And he kind of walked up, he cracked his knuckles, and he was just ready to go. And that was the last take we did. LeVar had to tag out after that.
But we got some pretty convincing footage, did we not?
We did. Now, in universe, it calls into question the inner workings of the elevator.
Like what the hell was that?
Does it just exist in a void, like a three-dimensional void it can go anywhere in?
And that's a good question. Like, yeah, is it vertical? Is it horizontal? I don't know.
Because he was tossed to literally all sides of it, the ceiling, the floor.
Yeah.
It's
ridiculous. Should we look this up right now?
Yeah, I'm sure there's blueprints of the
Star Trek Enterprise. What do they call them? They call them elevators?
Turbo lifts.
I
don't know why I know that.
Both vertical and horizontal transportation. That's why.
Interesting.
Nuts. I guess that makes sense given the way the starships are shaped.
Well, here's the thing about that scene, though, is that it still just takes him to his destination.
Yeah. It takes him there. It's just an asshole about it.
And then he gets ejected from it very violently, which I enjoyed this sequence. It was both silly and somewhat thrilling. I don't, maybe you hated it. I don't know.
Oh, it was certainly thrilling. All right.
But that's a little later in the episode. But basically, they decide to go to Iconia. They delve the logs. All right. Here's something. To get a load of this. Picard is delving through the captain's personal logs, and he tells the computer to bring up all logs that have mention of Romulan and or Iconia. Several of the logs do not that play in that sequence do not mention Romulan at all. And when a computer just says play all of these, you would think that there would be hundreds of them where he just offhandedly throws out the word Romulan, but no, it just plays in perfect sequence things only pertaining to Iconia, despite Picard's query for the search engine.
Yes, that's a pretty big mistake. For what it's worth, Google had not been invented yet.
It's true. Neither had Ask Jeeves.
Right, or DuckDuckGo.
Yep, Bing.
Yahoo.
I do not know another search engine.
Yep, well, we're both stuck.
No, well, you won. That's the thing.
There's one that was like dog themed.
Oh,
Go Fetch or something?
Yes, I think that's it. It's Go Fetch.
And I think that would pull from every search engine. Right.
Which is, as a user, imperceptibly useful. Like you it's no difference. You don't know, right?
Right.
To you, any one search engine is just the entire internet.
Well, the kids are saying Google is paused now.
Oh, I see. Well, the thing is, the Google has a doodle every other day.
Yes.
So whenever it's Harriet Tubman's birthday,
why did they call her Tubman?
Well, do you remember when I think it was Taft got stuck in that bathtub?
Mm-hmm.
Harriet Tubman was actually the inspiration for getting him out of there, and history has retroactively given her that name because the type of butter that she was famous for churning on the farm where she was a slave at, goat's butter, was the type that they used to grease Taft out of the tub. So
gotcha.
At the time,
wow.
Slaves didn't have full names. They just kind of had a first name because there's not much legal basis to have need to refer to a slave. So for the longest time throughout recorded history of the U.S., she was just Harriet. And after the whole Taft thing, they're like, okay, well let's give her a proper name. She did these great acts for the Underground Railroad. She deserves to have a proper surname as well. And they did the Taft thing, so all right, Tubman, got it.
How serendipitous. Although, if I had to go back, I think they should have called her Harriet Tub Girl.
That's true. Well, I mean, Tub Woman.
Tub Woman.
Let's not infantilize her.
Well, I was trying to keep the syllables the same, keep it snappy.
That's true, but you're undercutting her autonomy and agency.
Yeah, okay. Look, I'm just trying to be an ally.
Plus, as a slave, she was robbed of her girlhood. So let's not.
Oh, I'm sure she was.
Let's not downplay that struggle.
Right. Well, shout out to Harriet Tubman. Hope you're listening.
What's this podcast about? Trek?
Yeah.
So the turbo lift.
Oh man.
Oh jeez. So anyway, they go to Iconia, the fucking Enterprise, And they find there's a probe. I don't know if this really matters. And
Yeah.
they discern that the probe downloaded the computer virus onto all of the Amato's systems, which is why it had such a sudden collapse. And Geordi's rushing through this broken turbo lift to deliver news like, don't let that probe scan you. And
I forgot there was so much tension with that scene.
Yes. If for some reason, well, I guess the virus is the reason, but the communicators decided to not work only in that moment. And he's like, I have to rush to this broken elevator. I'm going to get thrown around, but I still get there in time anyway. And they destroy the probe and all's fine. So they're like, we got to go down to Iconia and figure this out. We have to go down to the planet.
Right.
And Picard says, I'm the archaeologist. I'm leading the away team. And Riker gets mogged.
Yes, he does.
By a shorter, bolder man.
Before they go down there, though, they have a little run-in with the Romulans again, right? Where they're trying to scan the basically just the same thing happens to the Romulans, right? And the Enterprise has to be like, don't do that.
I think that they go down and then the Romulans uncloak while Riker's in charge of the ship. But you're basically right. That is what happens.
Well, they have the Romulans destroy the probe, and
Riker does that.
Oh, really?
Well, I'm kind of doubting it, but I think so. Because Riker says something to the effect of, if you want to live, destroy that probe. And then it's just this awkward still shot of a small blue ball getting blown up by a stationary laser.
All right, maybe. I'm not going to argue because I don't really care. But
well, the thing is, these two events are so close together that it really does not matter.
It might as well be any order.
Yeah.
I was kind of disturbed that medical personnel didn't know what a splint was.
I was kind of disturbed that exchange was in the episode. It's just a weird shot at this random doctor. And it doesn't really do much for Pulaski's character either, which is like her one line in the episode. Well, I know this outdated way of medicine. I'm a comprehensive doctor. And then you got this man. It's like, well, I've never heard of a splint.
Yeah, he was trying to mansplain to her.
Right. And she gives the most bare bones explanation of what a splint is. It's like, oh, just take two pieces of wood and a rag, tie it together.
Just smack them with a plank of wood.
Yeah.
But here's the thing that bothers me about this is, like, we've already seen several times where medical personnel has been caught on an away team without access to technology. You know, you would think they would know how to do a basic splint, but whatever.
This didn't serve
totally
the
lost.
Purpose.
No, it didn't. I totally lost what I was going to say after this, though. I had something really important.
Really insightful.
Yeah.
Well, so they're going down to the planet. Anything related to that?
Oh, no. I had. So, you know, they figure out that this virus is like rewriting the Enterprise computer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my worry is, are they going to lose Moriarty? Or are they going to lose the brain of that guy who took over Data's body?
That's an excellent question.
Is that going to be overwritten?
Well, here's the thing about a system restore, which is the solution. In the most weirdly prophetic bit of writing I've ever seen in a television show, when you get a virus, you just do a system restore.
I thought we were going to talk about this later, but holy shit.
Yeah, we can talk about it now. It's amazing in several ways. One, how simple it is, and really they should have just arrived at this conclusion earlier if this was an option.
Yes.
But B, how this is actually just what you do with a computer virus in the modern year.
Right.
Which is astounding. Right. This was in the 80s. Home computers were so far away from being the norm. This is not something that the average person would be privy to. And obviously this was written by an IT individual in part. But yeah, what you do for a virus, both in the 80s and the 24th century, is also what you do in the 21st century, and that's just oddly amusing.
It's cute, but it is disturbing that Geordi couldn't arrive at this conclusion on his own.
Right.
He didn't just try shutting the computers down, huh? Just, and he does a wipe, which would wipe Moriarty out.
Well,
would it not?
I assume that just like with the system restore in real life, you kind of have these saved instances.
Oh, you got the backups, yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
So they'd have, like, if it's anything like my system restores throughout the years, you'd have one from 3 years ago, and then one from yesterday, which is corrupted.
Yes. Yes, of course.
So maybe they would lose Moriarty. But, let's just keep a Moriarty watch for the rest of the series.
Sure. We'll see if Moriarty ever shows up again, huh?
Yes. Or if there's ever any probable reason for him to be expunged from the computer banks.
So yes, they do go down to Iconia.
Yes.
It's Picard, Data, and Worf. And Worf is looking different this episode.
Yeah, this is the first time that there's a lot of focus on Worf, and I think a lot of people, certainly as people wrote in at the time, identified that Worf is a slightly different look. This was the debut, and the only instance, actually, of the Type C prosthetic, Klingon prosthetic. Mm-hmm. And a lot of it has to do with where the hair meets the prosthetic, like that area of it. That's where the big differences were. And it's very apparent on the HD release, but you can see why we didn't really stick with this one. It's pretty apparent why the Type B model was used immediately again in the next episode. I don't blame people for innovating and trying, but this one did not work.
Yeah, it really just, it's a freak thing, I mean, we had really skilled makeup guys, that came through every episode. I don't know how this happened, but every now and then everyone has a bad day, I guess.
Yeah. And part of the creative industry is accepting these losses, these things that don't work out.
Yeah, you got to take chances sometimes, and sometimes it's not meant to be.
Right.
But we do have Riker staying on the bridge, of course. There's a great line where
an extremely great line.
Yeah, and I you know what I'm talking about, where he tells Troy to go do something to keep the crew's morale up as the ship starts kind of like imploding almost. And she says something like, "Oh, don't you need me here?"
Yeah, in case
for interacting with the Romulans,
right? In case you need to negotiate again.
And he looks at her with just the most condescending smile, and just says, "I'll manage."
That I refuse to believe. I never had a chance to ask about this, but I refuse to believe that this was not intentional.
It had to have been.
I thought of you and us, all of our discussions, when I heard that again.
Yeah. I mean, it's so apropos, isn't it?
It is.
I mean, if everything we've talked about regarding Troy's role on the bridge, which is basically nothing, anyone could be sitting in that seat. And the Doctor frequently does. So
they go down. It's this away team. And they're on a set, which you said you don't like, which I thought was serviceable. Yeah,
so here's the thing with this set. I mean, we're talking about an ancient civilization. You can take this so many different ways. Just have it look completely alien, extremely advanced in ways we could never comprehend. But it looks like any other set you would find in the modern day in this universe.
I think that the control panel design was unique enough.
Oh, the control panel design.
Oh, we're gonna go here. I guess you could raise the point of how impractical a triangular shaped screen is.
It certainly is.
And this is supposed to be an advanced species, despite how old they are. So they should presumably have efficiency through all these things.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, now that I'm talking about it, it is kind of dumb. And it's just what we control our advanced warping technology through a game of Simon.
Yeah, that was stupid too. And then of course you have the warping window, which kind of just displays whichever locale it wants to at any given time, and you have to just sit there and wait for it to cycle through. Interesting behind the scenes bit about this too is it's flashing through all these different locations, and there's a location that looks pretty suspiciously like Toronto, right?
Yep.
And I think this has been debated quite a bit, especially on like Trek forums and stuff.
Oh yeah.
Was that supposed to be Toronto? Is it like some other, Federation planet or something, some Federation city? But no, it was supposed to be Toronto itself. Because, you see, one thing we were all very keen on for the direction of this show was just sort of ditching all this sci-fi mumbo jumbo outright, and getting our characters to the 20th century San Francisco setting of like Star Trek 4, right?
Just to be relatable.
Yeah, I mean, come on. It's people don't want to see like weird garbage in space.
Sterile. Cold.
Yeah, they want contemporary issues. And so we were going to have Picard time his jump just a second too late through that window. And he was going to find himself transported right into the heart of Toronto, right? Actually in the middle of an AIDS march.
Well, it would have been a real on the nose thing for the metaphor of the episode.
I think it would have worked out very well.
It might have. It might have.
But we were gonna have the rest of the season just have the crew search for him. That was gonna be like the majority of the rest of the season. And we'd have all this all this pretty hilarious fish out of water comedy. As they would, kind of start coming through to the other side of the warp portal.
I remember we had this big idea where Picard is looking at that one really winding road in San Francisco. That's like, where Picard sees that, and there's a remark, like a condescending remark about 20th century efficiency.
Yes.
But we were planning a lot of on location shots.
Yeah, it was going to be all on location for the most part. We were going to have Geordi ride the trolley.
Yes, and there was a big coming out of the the mood that precipitated the LA riots. It was going to be this race thing.
Yes,
an intersection about his race and about his disability, and it would have been groundbreaking.
It would have been, and this is what a show needs. It needs to be about contemporary politics, or else no one's going to want to watch it.
No.
But for whatever reason, this idea got completely shelved. It obviously didn't happen. But I am really happy we get to revisit it in Picard Season 2.
Look forward to that.
Yeah. Now, seriously, though, the intermittent changing of locale in this teleport window thing, it's really stupid.
It is. You can explain it away by the fact that Data did not know what he was doing at the console, but
okay, yeah, that's fair.
That's a plausible explanation, but I agree with you. It is dumb that this thing has a setting to just cycle through 6, 7, 8 different locations. Like, why? And why do they?
Yeah.
Why do 2 of them just happen to be these ships in the area? Neither of which were scanned, so that doesn't even
right.
Yeah,
I hate that.
That's a real contrivance.
Yeah.
So, at some point during this, they grasp the the severity of the situation, where if this technology where one can not beam but just basically transcend space and time to any location, the Romulans have this, it's game over, so they have to destroy this technology. And they set out to do that while Data's trying to blow up or make like a self-destruct sequence. It scans him, which severely disables Data. And
I just want to note that Brent is very good at playing dead.
He's very good at playing dead. He's not as good at playing half dead. So there's a period of time where Data is supposed to be malfunctioning, and he's like jittering, and he can't really get out full sentences. And the Picard and Worf are trying their best to communicate with him to solve the situation with his expertise of how to work this console. And I remember Brent was really into this. What he was trying to do was really play on the robot element of things. And he'd be like, beep, boop, beep, boop, beep, boop. These robot noises. And that's a nice bit of improv. He's feeling the character.
It is a robot thing,
right?
I guess.
Yeah, but the times he chose to do it were really, really inopportune. Michael would be delivering Worf's lines about Picard's intended sacrifice. Captain, you will die. These very heavy,
right.
And then Brent just beep boop beep boop beep. And it really affected the mood of the scene such that the director really just needed to put Brent in his place, and they went outside for 5-10 minutes, and when they came back, it was over.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was not the first time that would happen to Brent, and it wouldn't be the last time either.
No, I mean, these comedy people, they...
yeah. Oh, man.
Hard to keep a lid on them.
Yeah, certainly. So that scene was, I mean, even the final scene we got was excruciating.
I don't know about that.
Oh, God, it was horrible. It was like, did we have to bide our time to get to the full 45 minutes?
So I assume you're talking about Picard asking the malfunctioning Data for directions, yeah.
I remembered that scene and would have thought that scene would have lasted maybe like 30 seconds. But it goes on for like 5 minutes.
It didn't drag to me. I felt...
get out of here.
I felt a sufficient amount of tension in that scene of, the whole circumstance. We have to do this with this timing for various reasons. Because of the Romulan threat, because of the timing on the gateway, the Enterprise being about to blow up at any given moment. All of these elements combined to create enough tension where I was invested and the scene didn't drag to me. Okay.
I feel like you could have had Data speak normally and just be like, Captain, I do not have long, or something. I don't know.
Yeah, no, that's certainly true. Putting aside the improv issues, Brent's acting overall was very distracting. It just wasn't great in this scene.
Yeah.
So... You could have
we were talking off mic about how, I mean, it's a difficult scene to do.
It is. You could have done it a different way, play more on the physical malfunctions. And
sure.
Data can talk, but he can't move. And he's like, Worf, move me over here. Help me look at this.
Yeah.
And that would have been fine. All three characters would have been involved, and the pacing probably would have been better.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that would have been a great change, actually. That's a really good idea, Mitch.
I'm full of them.
If only they listen to you more.
If only. Instead, I just have to pitch my ideas for the most boringest episode ever.
Which still not win.
Did you... I guess I could share my nomination for this.
Sure.
So, what my pitch was a Picard Luxwana episode where they both bond over something introduced in this episode, actually, which we haven't talked about yet, over tea, Picard's love of tea. And the whole thrust of the episode was that Luxwana is visiting the Enterprise for some reason, and she sees Picard order a Earl Grey tea hot,
Ooh.
And she immediately jumps in with, no, you can't order your tea like this. You have to do this. And it becomes this series of one-upsmanship where they both try to pitch their favorite tea to each other for 40 minutes. And I thought for sure if I could get that episode greenlit, I would win. And I still maintain that, but obviously that never came to pass.
Well, someone thought it was interesting.
Someone did.
Sounds like a real home run to me.
Well, if that's the case, then I would have won. Yeah?
What was Luoxana's favorite tea?
Oh, so this was going to be not something entirely realistic, like it was going to be an alien tea.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think what I pitched was the Rooibos tea of Thraben 4 was my contribution.
Okay.
But the idea was that you could only have it to bring out its full potency. You had to eat it alongside some Targ-like food. It wasn't Klingon food, so it wasn't Targ, but it was something like that, where it's like, the equivalent of tea and scones. You have to have it this way. And then Picard would be this purist. It's like, no, you just have the tea. You don't eat anything. You don't put anything in it. And Luxwana's like, no, you got to add this special sugar cane from an entirely different planet. And they couldn't have been more opposite of each other. That was the whole point.
Yeah. Huh. Well, I mean, look, there's always the possibility that you can make that into a novel, a comic,
That's true. I mean, you've read the Star Trek novels I've worked on over the years, just privately.
Yeah. They're pretty good.
Thank you. This might be an idea worth exploring, but it was born out of that let's make the most boring episode competition.
Well, thank you for sharing, Mitch.
Yeah, it's.
I'm sure the audience appreciates that.
I'm gonna get in contact with some of the guys and the gals from that competition, that little circle, and see if I can bring up some of the other pitches from them, especially the ones that.
That's a good idea.
Made. Yeah,
that's a good idea. Yeah, cool. Yeah, I like that. Yeah. So to continue with the episode, I mean, it's basically just everyone lives happily ever after, except for the Romulans who have Picard teleport to their ship. And then he says like a snarky one-liner.
Well, he says
which basically amounts to "you're gonna die," and then leaves.
First of all, he says the strangest line of dialogue ever written by a human being, and I'll read it to you. Here's the exchange. The Romulan commander says, I can't stop our self-destruct sequence, but I will have the satisfaction of taking you with me. And then Picard, as he's beaming away, which he didn't know he would beam away, he says, "Not, I think, today."
Yes, that's right. Not, I think, today. Yep.
I cannot get over that phrasing.
Yeah.
It really, I don't remember what the script was as written, but it really reads like Patrick just flubbed it, and we kept it in.
Yeah, and that's another good point too, is he did not know he was going to be beamed out of there.
No.
So for all he knew, he could have said that and then gotten his ass kicked.
But the Romulan ship does end up halting its self-destruct sequence. So I guess that was just
it blows up.
No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it does.
There's no way. There's absolutely no way. No, it does not.
Are you sure?
Are you sure?
Well, not anymore. I thought it blew up.
No, so because Picard beams back and he says he opens a communications channel and he says,
"Oh yeah, that's right. They're gonna help them." Okay, that's right.
Yeah, I mean it'd be an intergalactic incident if that ship blew up, but not if the Yamato blows up.
Right. Yeah, we can sacrifice them.
Right, all those lives. All those lives.
So, yeah, I'm glad the audience gets to listen to my very, very important opinion on an episode that I forgot the plot to.
I have a note here that says, "What was that last line?" Question mark, question mark. And I'm not sure if I'm referring to the "not I think today" or if the actual last line of the episode was also ridiculous. But I guess it's
we
nice.
can check.
Oh, we can. I know you love bringing up the script. I know you have starscripts.net bookmarked.
No, it's the last line is well, number one, I can see why you want to keep the away missions to yourself. That's where the excitement is. So what's been happening here? Same old routine, I suppose.
Yeah, okay, that was weird. Like, what the hell?
It was like a little comedy bit.
Right, and Picard should surely appreciate the sheer amount of stress that everyone's been taxed by the fact that they've been living on a ship that could explode at any moment.
Yeah.
Those end of episode lines are so much better as thoughtful reflections than they are as quips.
Oh yeah. You never know which one you're gonna get. We've gotten quite a few quips so far.
Do you remember what was the name of that episode that everybody likes, where Picard lives out an entire life as this guy on a planet in a primitive civilization, and then he dies?
Oh god.
But do you remember that episode?
Yeah.
So at the end of it, Picard is in his ready room, and or maybe it's just his quarters, and he has that flute that he had learned to play in that other life, and it's just him like looking out the window, and it's very thoughtful. And I'm just imagining if that also ended in a stupid quip, and it's like it's Picard's birthday, and he's like, "Well, I'm not 49. Actually, I'm 132 after that," and everyone just laughs.
Freeze frame.
Yeah. It's like how many of those thoughtful moments have we been robbed of by these stupid quips at the end of these episodes?
I feel like every 1 in 10 is kind of funny.
Sure. It probably scales with the intensity of the episode itself. Right?
Yeah.
You have a somber, light, or thoughtful episode. Then a quip is just, no matter how funny it is, it's going to feel incongruent. Whereas the opposite,
very out of place. Yeah.
You have a lighthearted Wesley or Data episode, and obviously you want to end it with a quip.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, anything else before we get into our conclusion here?
Before we get into our conclusion, no. No.
No.
I'm just gonna jump into the conclusion with my thoughts. So I think more of this episode's flaws have come to light in our discussion, but I would still characterize it as an episode I thoroughly enjoyed. I will say something. There was a lot of thoughtful camera direction in this episode. There's this one scene where they're having a briefing about the nature of the virus, and it's very thoughtfully shot, very intentionally shot. There's a lot of,
you know what, you're right.
There's a lot of camera movement in basically every cut, and it struck me as much more visually engaging than a lot of scenes typically are in TNG.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And shout out to Joe, who we didn't mention even once during this episode.
Well, we got him in the end.
I mean, it is difficult to bring up someone who is just so good at their job that I mean, the job of a director really is to convince you he's not there.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And unless you're privy to this kind of thing, you don't notice it. He is not there.
Mm-hmm.
So really good job. Much better than we usually get.
Right, for sure. Yeah, he did a great job.
But going back to my overall thoughts, I still think it's a great episode. The tone being more sci-fi in general, more technical, a little more sterile. I like these episodes of Trek that just have more intriguing sci-fi-ish premises.
Mm-hmm.
And despite the flaws, I think that it executed its premise well.
Sure. I obviously didn't like the episode as much. I would agree with you that I mean it's a decent episode. I think it just might be not kind of my cup of tea.
More Earl Grey cold.
Right. I wouldn't tell someone not to watch this episode, but it's probably not one that I'm going to be personally going back to anytime soon.
Yeah, I think that's fair. There's some times where an episode I think is really good, and if you have a negative opinion of it, I kind of don't get it, but I completely understand where you're coming from on this.
Yeah, I just found myself completely bored with this one, but that's not to say it was a boring episode. It's just
You can say it's a
not my
boring
thing.
episode. I'm not going to get offended. And it's an episode of television, so it's not going to get offended.
Well, I'm worried about our ensigns, Mitch.
Oh, that's true. They've been offended before, and they will be offended again.
Oh, they'll continue to be offended.
Fuck you, ensigns.
Fucking. So, all right, let me move on to my question for you.
All right, is this another comic?
It's a mirror comic question. Yep.
You know, I think the Mirror of Mirror universe is where I get the trivia questions correct.
You'll get this one. You'll
Okay.
get this one. So, Picard and his crew have successfully stolen the Enterprise with the help of Geordi.
Right.
Or at least they've convinced Geordi to help them in their plan to steal the Enterprise.
Which was just
Now-
floating in midair, cloaked.
Yes, in the middle of the city. Now, Picard, who's still on the Stargazer, is saying, you know, we as a ship, to be able to function, we need a crew that trusts each other. And since this is the mirror universe, everyone does not trust each other, and in fact will kill each other at the drop of a hat.
As we've seen.
So, yes. So, what Picard proposes is to have Troy read everyone's minds and kick out anyone who is at all disloyal to the captain.
Okay.
He also decides he needs a new first officer.
Is Riker in the scene at this point?
No,
Okay.
but he's the one he wants to get as the first. No, you know what it is? Riker is the first officer of the Enterprise. He's planned to be the first officer of the Enterprise. So Picard wants him to be his first officer. So he needs to convince Riker to allow Picard to take over the Enterprise.
Okay.
How does Picard convince Riker? He meets him at a bar. How does he convince Riker to join him?
He offers him women.
He does not offer.
God, I was so
I'll give you-
confident.
I'll give you one more.
All right.
You didn't have a chance to think. You didn't give yourself a chance to think.
No, but I don't think that's a bad thing to snap
It's not.
off.
No, it's not. It's not a bad. No, it's not.
Okay. So how does Picard successfully offer Riker this and get him to come to his side?
Yes.
I kind of suspect that it has to do with an order of succession kind of thing, where Picard says something to the effect of, once I die, you'll be next up as captain, and because we're all duplicitous traitors, that's sure to happen at some point.
Well, not quite. No.
Okay. Then let me
That's a good guess.
Let me get 3 strikes on this, and then I'll be out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so not women. What? I'm thinking more about Riker right now. What motivates Riker? I'm going to assume this has nothing to do with jazz.
Nothing to do with jazz.
Okay. All right, then something to the effect of in its current assignment, the Enterprise will just be doing basic, boring assignments, and under me, it will be more adventurous and exciting.
Nope.
Dang.
So the way he gets Riker to join him in his effort to
What does he?
take over the Enterprise
Okay.
is he just beats the shit out of him. He gets into a fist fight and he beats him.
So
He throws a chair at him.
Uh huh.
Riker throws a chair at Picard.
It's always Riker in
And-
chairs.
Then Picard suplexes him. And they sit there afterward, and Riker says, "Oh, why don't you tell me about this plan of yours now?"
So just to be clear, Picard, despite the goatee, is otherwise the same person, right? He's still like an aging, bald man.
Yeah.
Okay, and he suplexes the 6-inch taller Riker.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I should have known.
You have to admit it's very convincing. A great way to have someone join your team is by beating them.
Well, I assume that in the mirror universe, everyone just operates on the most violent prison logic that exists.
That is what it is prison logic. It really is how the world should be. You talk shit, get hit kind of stuff.
All right, in the mirror universe, is it bearded Riker or no bearded Riker?
He's bearded, and he has a scar going down his left eye, and his left eye is kind of discolored because it's like blind or whatever.
Because of the scar.
Because of the scar.
He should get what they're giving Geordi. Cyborg
He should.
eye?
Maybe he'd be able to see better.
Yeah, see it all. It would counteract his cataracts.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Thank you.
I do have to note they all have short sleeves or no sleeves actually in this universe on their uniforms.
That follows prison logic for what it's worth.
Their uniforms are the exact same except they just have no sleeves.
Guns out.
Yep. But yeah, anyway, good attempts. You were too smart for this comic.
Thank you. That means a lot to me. That'll come back to that well when I'm licking my wounds from this loss of trivia.
Look, I can't blame you for getting that wrong. I really can't.
It's fun to guess. It's fun to theorize these things. And I appreciate the wealth of opportunity this mirror comic is giving our trivia hour.
Yeah, we still have another 10 chapters to go.
So, a weird case of serendipity is that I believe that when Picard goes undercover in an episode of TNG on like a smuggler's ship, I don't know if you remember this, but he basically ingratiates himself into the ship of criminals in this exact same fashion.
Yes.
And
probably where the inspiration was drawn from.
Probably. This comic was written decades after TNG?
Yes.
Yeah.
Very recent.
People just love this geriatric Picard just, stomping on
I know.
much fitter men.
It's especially disturbing nowadays.
It is. I mean, seeing Patrick Stewart speak is especially disturbing nowadays.
Well, like he always says, if you like the Jonas Brothers, cover your belly.
Indeed. And join us next week on the Readier Room, where we'll be covering our bellies as noted Jonas Brothers fans. I know we both have their calendars on our walls and in our bathrooms. So
yes, indeed.
It'll be a fun time. And until then, everybody, please stay ready.
The troublesome little man-child.
Consider that in the history of many worlds, there have always been disposable creatures.
Do you consider yourself superior to us?
Should have told him to mind his own damn business.
But I stroked the beard thusly. Do I not appear more intellectual?
Computer! Freeze program.
It's not a promising beginning.